Welcome. You are watching episode 30 of the Mobility Talks, the web series by EIT Urban Mobility that covers all aspects of urban mobility from every possible angle. After episode 28, we decided to put the topic of this episode to the vote, and the number one topic that came out was public transport. So here we are today with this episode on public transport innovations. It would be great if you could share your views by joining us on the Mentimeter, either by scanning the QR code, or if you prefer not to be tracked to the bone, we have also shared the link in the chat, or you can go to menti.com and enter the code that you can see here on the screen. And I'd like you to complete the following sentence. Public transport innovation cannot happen without, and you have up to 3 options. And this is to get you thinking on some of the essentials behind any public transport innovation. Because, of course, it is undoubtable that public transport is the foundation of urban mobility. It enables mass transit and rationalizes the use of public space for the purpose of personal and professional mobility. It's also an intrinsic part of a city's identity. Whether you are a tram city or a bus city, whether you have an underground or you use ferries, public transport is deeply connected to the geospatial characteristics and the cultural heritage of places where people live. In addition to enabling mass transit through collective forms of transport, public transport is also a network of interconnecting routes and vehicles, and performs a public interest mission of linking up different parts of a city as well as its suburbs. In other words, it's a map with fixed routes and timetables, which is the opposite model to individual forms of mobility that come and go as they please in public space. The expectation for public transport is that it is stable and reliable, which is almost the opposite of innovation, which requires taking risks, experimenting, and making step changes at a fast pace. So, is public transport innovation an oxymoron? How is public transport reacting in the face of other forms of mobility that compete in public space, as well as playing its role in creating more vibrant, inclusive, and sustainable cities, in a context where cities are having to reach ambitious climate targets while providing an optimal service for users? Our lineup of speakers today will be shedding light on specific case studies where public transport is innovating. And then we will be discussing some more horizontal aspects linked to public transport innovation. And I am pleased to welcome Joana Cunha. She's ITS Development Manager at Transport for Greater Manchester. Joana Cunha, Innovation Project Manager at CARRIS in Lisbon. Bert van Hemelen, Strategy Manager for De Lijn, and Eric Calais, Innovation and Industrialization Director at Keolis. Welcome to the 4 of you. And I see here that participants consider that public transport innovation cannot happen without collaboration, technology, money. So funding is obviously very important. Political support, I see here. Capacity, people. Joana, how would you complete this sentence?
Well, actually, I'm very pleased with this outcome. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation to participate in this forum and for the participants' interest in this topic. I was saying I'm very pleased with with these outcomes because the first word that did come to my mind was collaboration, because public transport nowadays is not a single mode. So we as an operator cannot try to exist in the city thinking about our own operations. We have to think of intermodal collaboration, let's say, collaboration with other modes of transport to give the citizens intermodal options to better serve their needs. We also have to include active mobility and even the city in terms of planning, of creating the conditions for us to do a proper job and to actually serve the citizens and our passengers.
Okay, so collaboration for you, Bert. What would the word be for you?
Hello, all of you. Thanks also for the invitation, and glad to be part of this panel. The most likely response for me would be without necessary funding and regulation. That's too easy. So I keep, for me, the most important is keeping the focus on the customer. So innovation is a necessity for all organizations, not only in public transport, but it's necessary to be resilient in all the changing world that we are facing and all the challenges are ahead of us. So for me, we have to keep in mind that the customer is the one that we're all doing it for.
Okay, funding and regulation. Thanks a lot, Bert. Hannah, how would you finish the sentence?
I think a little bit like Joanna, I was thinking more on the integration side, but I think that aligns to that collaboration. So I think maybe integration in terms of those kind of systems that need to work together. So we've got a fully seamless transport network. So thinking perhaps about how bus might integrate with tram travel and how that links to like traffic management systems. I think that's just coming from my area, but I think the crux of that as well is a lot around data. So maybe for me, it's data and integration.
Okay, thanks a lot. Data and integration. And finally, Eric, your finish to the sentence.
Not easy. At CARRIS, we are very fond of passenger. Think like a passenger is one of our mottos. It's very close, in fact, to customer, but that's one point. And of course, collaboration is absolutely key in whatever we do, especially with the territories.
Okay, brilliant. So that gets us started nicely. But before we go deeper, I'd also like to quickly introduce you to yourselves. You were more than 160 to register for this episode and coming from 38 different countries from around the world. So thanks a lot for your commitment and for following the mobility talks. And we also have a nice representation from private and public sectors, but also specifically for this topic, academia. So I'm really hoping that you will all be able to bring your different perspectives to the conversation. To do so, please use the chat and Q&A to share your questions, thoughts, and comments, and I'll be raising them then with our speakers. So without further ado, I propose that we get started and first go to Lisbon with Joana to hear our first public transport innovation case study. So Joana, over to you.
Well, thank you. Okay, let's start. Let's dive in. So just to start, brief words about CARRIS. We are the public transport in the city of Lisbon. We are city-owned, and we operate the tram and bus services in the municipality. Just to give you a brief overview of the size of our operations, to give you an idea, we normally transport around 500,000 passengers per day, weekday, over 110 lines. Our operations are secured by trams and some funiculars and an elevator, but the large majority of the operation is done by buses. So we have a fleet of almost 800 buses, and in the last few years, there's been an effort to have a higher percentage of low emission buses. So we are investing heavily on electric fleets and on CNG buses, and we're also starting to study the option of hydrogen buses to serve our operations. We have seen in the latest years some issues with our commercial speed, so it's been very heavily affected by increasing congestion in the city. And part of this is that our network it covers a large majority of the city. However, only about 10% of this service is on a dedicated lane. So moving on, what we do at my team, which is the innovations team at CARRIS, we search for partnerships with startups and even European level projects to conduct R&D and demonstration pilots, which allows us as an operator to get access to new technologies and methodologies that are still under development and to test them in short-term pilots to assess their added benefits and what improvements they can produce in our operations if they were implemented. Also, another very important aspect for us is that this helps us build a networking with other cities, other public transport operators, which allows us to share experiences and expertise with them. Just very briefly, in our team, currently we try to tackle three major themes. One is to have to investigate tools to help with our operations, so fleet management, real-time monitoring, mitigating disturbances. We also search for new technologies, so as Anna said before, data collection, performance and incident analysis, and we are also explore digital twin, the simulation tools. And finally, as was said before, passengers are also a very important element for us, so we want to serve them well and meet their needs. So we also always search for projects that allow us to improve passenger information, provide real-time updates, and increase the attractivity and convenience of our service to them. One of these projects that I wanted to bring to you is the Upper project. This is a Horizon Europe project that is currently undergoing. And this is a very ambitious project. It has over 40 partners and 10 pilot sites. And the main goal of this project is to promote the use of public transport and active modes. And the framework, the way we are doing this in the project is each city will implement a set of measures that are designed to either discourage the use of private cars in the city or to increase the convenience and attractiveness of public transport and active modes. To support the implementation of these measures, a set of technological tools are being developed, dealing with digital twinning and simulation, citizen engagement tools also, and knowledge transfer tools, because this is a very important aspect in this project, which is we don't merely want to demonstrate the outcomes of this pilot within the project. We want to create the conditions for other cities to learn from the measures we implemented, learn from the process we applied, and to allow them to replicate similar measures in their own cities. And in this project, we are partnered in Lisbon with the municipality of Lisbon and TML, which is the public transport authority for the metropolitan area. We have a set of combined between us. We have a set of 10 measures. I'm not going to go through all of them, of course, but I brought you some examples of the type of measures that we are implementing. They can be grouped in 3 parts and 3 groups. One is public space and infrastructure intervention, so very local and physical interventions in the city. We also want to increase the accessibility and convenience of public transport and active modes to users. And finally, we have some measures about planning ahead, planning the future, and promote long-term behavioral changes. So very quickly, the first measure I'm going to present is being implemented by us, which is a bus lane enforcement pilot. This comes from a need that we found that over the latest years, specifically after the COVID-19 pandemic, we have observed the reduction of our commercial speed, which has been consistent over the years. And we found that road congestion and irregular parking, specifically these 2 causes are responsible for 60% of our total lost kilometers. And we found that many of these incidents, so irregular parking on the bus stops or on the lane, or improper use of the bus lane, are very common in Lisbon. So within Amper, we have a measure which is we increase the physical enforcement of bus lane with the help of the municipal police, but we are testing a pilot of a technology for front-face cameras that automatically detect these infractions, which will allow us to get a better perception of where in the city these events happen and the magnitude of these events, how they affect our operations. And with hopes to the future, if successful, if we have legislation allowing for it, it will allow us to automatically fine infractions. A second example, it was the revolution that was made in the ticketing system in Lisbon. So just for you to get an overview, we operate only on the city of Lisbon, but we have the metropolitan area has a lot of different operators, buses, trains, ferries, and before 2019, before the TML came into operation, they have different combination of tickets. We have hundreds of different combinations. So one big revolution that happened in 2019 was that they defined a single tariff for the whole of the metropolitan area. And within Upper, they want to, so this tariff was for public transport modes. And within Upper, they wanted to include the city of Lisbon's city-owned bike sharing system in the pass. So any user of the monthly ticket has access for free to the bike sharing system. This initiative was implemented very successfully and will be extended for e-scooters, which we also have in the city. And this measure, although it was not done by CARRIS, in parallel, we did make some changes in our systems. We created an app-based payment system for the monthly pass within our app, and also we introduced QR code, and credit card payments on the bus. Another intervention that we measured that we are implemented was that CARRIS's bus network was designed in 2006, so it is in need of a full revision. We are starting this process, and we identified that because the citizens they are our client, after all, we wanted to include it from the onset of the process. So we did, before starting the network revision process, we did a qualitative study on the perception of users and non-users through focus groups. So we did focus group including different types of users. We included also drivers and non-users to get their main concerns, their main perceptions on the system, and the expectations they have for the future. And our hope is that these results will help design the new network. And finally, last measure I'll be presenting is the yellow school bus. So this is an initiative by the city of Lisbon, the municipality, and it wants to promote the use of public transport from a young age. So what they are doing is they created the Amarelo school bus, which is an accompanied transport of children in regular public transport buses. So basically, the idea is that the parents leave the children safely at the bus stop, and they will have their travel with the monitors until the school. So it's to create this independence for the students and how do I say, this feeling of more comfort for the parents, that they know that their children are being looked after and safely reach the school. And part of this idea was also to offer the monthly pass for the children in these schools. So for all school-aged children to have the free monthly pass. So not wanting to take too much more of your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanna. Yeah, so tackling one of the biggest problems, which is this congestion on bus lanes, then the integrated tickets, getting citizens involved, and then also promoting public transport from a young age. So these are different angles on innovation that you've showed. Thank you so much. We will go deeper soon. I would then like also to call on Hannah so that she can also tell us then about a case study over in Manchester. Over to you, Hannah.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Hannah Tune from Transport for Greater Manchester. I work in the Intelligent Transport Systems team, so we're looking at data and technology, kind of innovation, different business models, how we can do things differently to improve efficiency of our transport network for our customers from a multimodal perspective. So I'm going to talk a little bit around what Transport for Greater Manchester does. I think I'm struggling with my clicker. Yeah, so what Transport for Greater Manchester does in terms of managing the transport network. So I don't know, guys, if you can move my slides to the next one, that's fantastic. Thank you. So yeah, an introduction to Transport for Greater Manchester, and then I will go on to the case study for public transport innovation. So we're the Transport Authority responsible for all transport-related activity in Greater Manchester. So we work on behalf of the 10 local authority districts within Greater Manchester, managing all transport-related activity. So from managing the bus and the tram network, to planning for active travel, to operating our traffic signals and collecting data about people movement, where people are travelling, why they're travelling. So we can kind of plan and invest in transport infrastructure. We've recently brought the bus network back under local control. So we're the first authority to do that outside of London in the UK. So that's providing us with a lot of learning in terms of how we operate the bus network, how we make it cost efficient, how we kind of providing the best services for our customers. And as part of that, we're building the B network, which is our fully integrated transport network. So bringing together bus, tram, active travel, and ultimately rail as well. So we will start to kind of own and manage some of the rail stations within Greater Manchester and have more input on the planning of services and how that links to the GM transport network. As part of that, there's ticketing and information and ensuring that we're providing a quality service to our customers. And all of this is helping us to create jobs, businesses, homes and opportunities within Greater Manchester. Yeah, my clicker's still not working. If we could do the next slide, please. Yeah, so travel in Greater Manchester. So across the Greater Manchester network, there's 5.5 million trips made every day. And currently this is quite car dominant. So 60% of those trips are still made by private vehicles. So we obviously want to change that. We want to increase walking and cycling and active travel and also public transport. Even some of those shorter trips are still made by cars. So yeah, we're working really hard to kind of get those nudges to our customers to make that change. We could have the next slide, please. And as part of our transport strategy, so our 2040 transport strategy, we've got a right mix agenda, which is really focusing on that kind of transition to sustainable transport. So by 2040, we want 50% of trips to be made by sustainable modes. And that's 1 million more sustainable journeys every day across our transport network. And the next slide, please. And so, yeah, that's it in terms of Transport for Greater Manchester and what we do. So in terms of the case study for innovations in public transport, I'm going to talk about a project that we've got ongoing at the moment. It's 5G innovation regions, and it's being funded by central government, the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, to look at carbon reduction and how connectivity can help support carbon reduction. It's a cross-sector project, so it's been managed by the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. We're leading on the transport work stream, but there's also a work stream around housing and energy, so how 5G can support heat-enabled heat pumps. So yeah, and using that 5G connectivity to support both areas of connectivity. So what we're doing within that project is a lot around data collection. So how can the 5G connectivity support data collection? So we're looking at different sensing technologies. So using computer vision, LiDAR, collecting a whole host of data from count and classification, flow, utilising ANPR. We've got near-miss technology. And the picture there on the left-hand side is of one of the junctions in the smart transport network. And that has a Metrolink, so our tram network running through it. So we want to look at how we can use this data to support public transport for Metrolink, but also for bus. So looking at kind of fusing data with floating vehicle data and bus open data, which is a data source collected in the UK, supported by the Department of Transport. So all bus scheduling information has to be shared openly, and bus location. So we're integrating that data to give us a better picture of what's happening across the network. So visualizing sensing data gathered from sensors with the data gathered from floating vehicle data and the bus open data. So thinking about how we get those efficiencies in public transport, but also thinking about the insights on people movement, so where people are moving, why they're making those journeys, and how that can inform planning and investment. The integration will be with traffic modelling and simulation tools, so it will look at anomaly detection and prediction. So we'll get late running bus alerts and look at how we can mitigate with traffic management strategies. We're also looking at this from a near miss and vulnerable road user perspective. So at that junction, there's a number of transport interactions. So there's a number of schools in the area. There's a number of Metrolinks, so the tram stops and also bus stops. Tram line running through that. Also, the cars actually block the tram line. So using that detection equipment to alert of that blocking, but also providing bus priority and ensuring we can get trams to move safely through the junction as well. The next slide, please. So this is just a little bit around that modelling and simulation. So we're using AIM-SUM Live, which is our modelling and simulation package already used within Greater Manchester for our microsimulation. So we've got quite a large network which is modelled. So the regional centre, so Manchester City Centre and Salford City Centre. So with that additional real-time data being fed into the AIM-SUM model, we're able to simulate real-world traffic conditions. So we can get predictions up to 1 hour in advance, and they come in 15-minute slots. So that gives us the opportunity to react quicker to congestion. We've also got the late running bus alert, so bus schedules and automatic vehicle location is also fed into the AIM-SUM model. So we're alerted of those late running buses and able to use transport strategies and mitigation strategies to alleviate that in real time. So a lot of this is around that congestion prediction, because our buses run on the highway network. So solving those congestion problems on the highway network has an impact for bus, but also that anomaly detection for congestion and increase in traffic flows, but also for those late running buses. And we're able to look at that historical and real-time traffic data as well, and look at the feedback loop. So what actually happened? Did those scenarios that were implemented really make a difference? And what would have happened if we'd not actually implemented those scenarios? So we've got that full kind of end-to-end picture of that traffic management journey. And the final slide, I think, is a video that just shows some of our simulation software. So yeah, this is the Greater Manchester model, and we're drilling down into one of our smart transport corridors, which is part of the project. We'll be able to see the individual sensors along that network. And as we drill down into that, we will see the real-time data that's gathered across the day, and then we get to those predictions in 15-minute intervals. that kind of alert us to any anomalies, that then allows us to implement those traffic signal strategies. And that's it from me. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Hannah. And I guess as you were talking about, 60% of trips are made by private vehicles. I guess congestion is, the major thing that you need to deal with. And so a lot of the data points help with that. Hopefully in the future, maybe that gets easier if the transition has happened. Okay, brilliant. Thanks a lot, Hannah. I propose then that we go to hear from Bert in Belgium, actually. So over to you, Bert.
Okay, hello again. The case I want to present you is how we turned our vehicles into smart data collectors. But before, I have to present the company a bit. But my slide, that's not. Okay, now it's set. So, what is the line? We are public transport operator in Belgium. We cover the Dutch-speaking region, the north of Belgium, Flanders, where most operators cover cities and the surrounding areas. We are a bit special. We operate in multiple cities and also in rural regions between the cities. We have the Intel operator Flanders. We have a fleet of about 4,000 buses, which half of them are subcontracted to partners. We have a 500 trams. We operate bus services, tram services, metro services in Antwerp, and tram services in cities as Antwerp, Ghent. And we are also proud that we can say that we have the longest, the world's longest tramway along the Belgian coast. What's also quite specific is that we have more than over 60 depots and 30,000 stops in the whole of the region. Can someone move to the next slide, please? Okay, what about innovation at the line? There are a lot of innovation projects. The biggest one is really transformation project. Is a project that all transport companies are facing is effective the fleet electrification project, when you have to electrify 4,000 vehicles into electric vehicles and install charging infrastructure and provide energy to 60 locations in the whole region is quite a challenge. We have now 10% of our fleet already converted, and by 2035 we'll have our fleet electrified. But I thought that we come back to that topic later. The case I want to present is about the passenger counting, so more of this right away. And we have a lot of initiatives with artificial intelligence, like more of our colleagues do. Travel time prediction is very interesting to, based on heuristic and historical data, get realistic travel time predictions to have accurate planning and schedules for our drivers and our vehicles. Real-time passing time prediction, also AI-based, to ensure that effective we keep track not only of the past data, also but the context data. What was the weather situation? What type of day was it? That we can predict very accurate the passing times to our travelers. We also have the virtual customer assistants, like most of the companies have. We use tram simulators to train our new drivers to get along with tram driving instead of using wheel trams. It's very cost effective. We have also a system in place, also AI based, for shot detection of tram overhead lines, so the infrastructure and the rails also, to turn over into predictive maintenance of the wear implants instead of the reactive response. One specific solution also is we invented a solution for bicycle-safe trambeds. We have in the city of Ghent. It's quite an historical and beautiful city in Flanders, but with very narrow streets, and there's not enough room in the street for both the tram rails and the cycle tracks. So there was a lot of problems with cyclists getting stuck with the wheels in the tram rails. So we invented some kind of elastic compulsion which overlays the rails so that we had less accidents with cyclists getting stuck with bicycles and getting hurt by falling over. One other track that we have started is in the EDI platform here. It's the tram collision preventions, where we have installed with a partner lidar systems and cameras on the head of the trams to prevent collision. So it detects any kind of problem that can occur and interacts with the tram steering system to take the appropriate action. So, but the one, okay, next slide, please. The one I will go on in detail is the one on the smart data collection. As Anna mentioned before, data is crucial, and quality of data really can be turned into gold. What was our challenge? We have a lot of variety in ticket types, subscriptions, validation managers. So we are not really aware of the real numbers of passengers on our vehicles on their lines. And effective, our capacity was put in place on the right lines and on to fulfill the real demand. So the conventional method was based on manual count, fixed counting point. I don't have to explain that. And the consequences was we have not good quality, fragmented view of the passenger flows, and no access to real-time insight. And the most of all, the biggest problem is we have difficulties justifying policy decisions or infrastructure investments with confidence because we didn't have the right quality. So the solution we came up, next slide please, was quite simple and cost effective. We installed counting cameras, AI-based cameras above every door in every vehicle. So what does those cameras do? They don't register video, they don't register or track individuals, no video kept on the system itself. They just count and detect objects. So they can detect an adult, a child, a wheelchair, and this counting data is sent in real time to the backend together with vehicle data, the position, the line information, and that's all. So in that sense, we turned into every vehicle into a mobile data collector. What we also did is we enriched this counting data with context data to really to have a more better added value at the end. But that's on the next slide. So the data we combined with was the check-in data is from our validators and the bank card validation. Also, we incorporated real-time vehicle positions. This allows us to link the passenger volumes with the specific location and times, which is crucial for understanding boarding and lighting patterns. We connected it also and integrate with the planning data such as scheduled stops and expected occupancy, which adds another layer and helps us to compare actual versus expected usage. The vehicle information like the vehicle type or door configuration helps us to interpret the differences in the boarding behavior and the counting accuracy. And we even added the factor of weather conditions, which can have a strong influence on riderships and patterns. And finally, we included also the type of ride. Is it a regular service? Is this a school run? Or is this an event shuttle? Which helps to contextualize the fluctuation in passenger numbers. This altogether, this integration transforms our warm counts into rich actionable insights, which supports smarter planning, better service delivery, and more targeted investments. Next slide. What is the innovative edge of this solution? The most important one is flexibility. We can now collect data across all routes, all time of day, under varying weather conditions, gives us a more complete and dynamic view of the passenger behavior, gives us real-time insights. We have an AI component installed, and is highly efficient to leverage existing fleets of vehicles as mobile data collectors without the need for additional infrastructure or costly installations. Next slide, please. Where is the added value? So the fact that we have now automated continuous data collection, the real-time insights, we automated the manual efforts. We eliminated also the complexity of the diversity of ticket types and subscription, which is a quite big problem to solve. And we are more accurate. We have now more accurate and timely data where we can adjust services dynamically instead of being reactive. Final slide, please. So where is the added value per stakeholder for PTOs and PTAs? We can now really, with this data, match the service supply with the actual demand. So the counting cameras give a real-time route-specific data on the passenger flows. This helps us to optimize the timetables, adjust the vehicle deployment, and even redesign routes whenever necessary. So we really make now data-driven decisions. For manufacturers, they can integrate this custom build so that the vehicles become intelligent data platforms. For academic and research institutions, they can gain access to this rich but anonymized data sets that reflects real-world mobility behavior. And for policymakers, as I mentioned before, and planners, this technology provides evidence-based that they need. So I think it's a really interesting case, quite cost-effective with a lot of added value. Thanks.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks a lot, Bert. And in the sake of time, I propose that we go straight also to Eric, who gives us a perspective from CARRIS, maybe less local, let's say, and more in several localities. So over to Eric.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. So CARRIS is I will get into the presentation, but CARRIS is a private group. It's a public transport operator. We are a private company, though we are belonging to SNCF, which is a French national rail company for 70%, and 30% for the CDPQ, which is a Canadian fund for retirement costs. I will make a sorry, I have to check. Sorry, change the slide. There is a short video. I will try to work on it to talk upon it. Yes, I'm connected now, and yet it starts. If you still can hear me, just to illustrate some of the cases and the modes we are operating. Especially in France, we are operating a certain number of multimodal contracts that include both trams or metro, plus buses, plus bicycles sometimes, parking sometimes, and things like that. In an overall world perspective, we are operating automated metros in many places. A bit of trains too, especially in Boston, the US, and Virgin Rail, and a few in Australia too, and buses and coach networks. This is Hyderabad, this is London, this is Lyon, and I think it was Rennes. And as for today, we are one of the 4 big world public transport operators and present in 13 countries. And I think you can see about everything. A very important thing on our side is that we also operate some additional public transport modes, such as paratransit, bicycle sharing, rental bicycle on a medium long term, And the variety of the size of the contract is also very high, from Bordeaux or Rennes, which have very used multimodal contracts, to small bus networks in France, in the Netherlands, for example, to huge heavy rail, light rail contracts, such as the Metrolink tram network in Manchester, or the DLR metro network in London. And I think you know almost everything, and you had a bit of images of automated mobility that we have been trying since a long time too. So this is more or less where we are and who we are. If I'm good, I can change the slide. Sorry, it's connected now. Now it's good. Yeah. So 13 countries, about 70,000 people in the world. Three very important figure, I think, 300 public transport authorities that we are serving, from very big to very small, including Hannah and Manchester. 13 transport modes, certain activity with car park too, especially in the contract of Dijon in France. We operate both the public transport, the bikes, and the car parking, including on the streets, and many new things and trains, as we have the expertise from our mother company, of course, on that. Plus special mode regarding health, transportation, and things like that. Wanted to take two examples. One is, sorry, I have to get my connection for yes, now. Sorry. Many thanks. Yes, just to take two different aspects of what could be innovation in public transport. Urban Loop is a new mode. Technically, I would say this is an automated metro, but as you can see on the image, it's a very specific automated metro. It's made of small capsules with 2 seats, and we've been operating a pilot service since last summer, with the technologies that have been designed by a French small company. I think there are 30% or 35 today, Urban Loop, from the eastern part of France. What they developed is a very low impact automated metro that allows people to go from one place to the other, of course, and with the idea of having a very good user experience from the passenger point of view, allowing them to go directly to their final destination and not to wait, as they just have to get in the capsule and to go to choose their destination to go directly there. We had the opportunity to make this pilot service since 1 year. It will last until November this year. It was financed by the French Environment Agency, and we had on the discussion Saint-Quentin-Yvelines, which is a major group of cities in the western part of Paris. So this is, let us say, new technologies, but based on existing regulation, because automated metro is something that is known for regulation and authorities. So this was the first example. Another part I wanted to share with you, if I get my remote control, it will be back in 1 second. Yes. No. Yes. Sorry. Many thanks. Is the overall innovation approach we call Open by Keolis. The brand is not very old. I think Open by Keolis has been presented in the last month. The idea is, how can we innovate at the scale of 300 public transport authorities with something that makes sense and is making benefit for everyone in the group and outside the group. And the idea is to have a framework that uses 3 pillars. One pillar is that innovating well is innovating locally, co-building innovation with the priorities of each of our public transport authorities. And this is how we made the first labs jointed with our customers, in fact, with the public transport authority, plus stakeholders such as our staff, the passengers, the passenger associations, and so on. So this is the idea. The first idea is we innovate locally. Second level is we build a network of a local lab so that they can both share experience, challenges, ideas, and also they can build on what the other did before, so that we can, let's say, industrialize the different innovation or develop them together between two territories. So this is the network part. And the third part, which is more traditional, I think, in big groups, is that we have what we call the open factory, which is the way we can emphasize a few projects by adding more staff, money, resources, and so on, to accelerate them when we consider that they are important for the overall group strategy. So this is three parts structured into a framework. We have a flagship lab. As we are in Europe, I do not mention Dubai today, but they also have a very smart lab. But TB Move, which is a lab that was jointly developed with Bordeaux Métropole in Bordeaux, just reached its second birthday yesterday. It was a warm ceremony about that, and they developed a certain number of projects with, as we do in labs, starting, evaluating, sometimes stopping, and sometimes going further. And these projects, to give an example, you have a few images on the right, some from Bordeaux, some not. We try to share as much as we can the major projects on our website, innovation.carris.com, which is absolutely public. And we share inside the group with the different innovation and other teams the different projects we see. And we are very happy because we are currently organizing the 2025 CARRIS Innovation Awards, and we are currently evaluating 136 applications from the different networks and from, in fact, the 5 continents. So that's most of what I wanted to share with you today. A framework, some very let us say innovative innovations like urban loop, and some much more local and targeted on what the territory's targets are. And I think that's more or less the most important I wanted to share with you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Eric. And that then closes our first part with the different case studies. I think we've heard already lots of different examples, and I'd like to bring in our other panelists and maybe also just to reflect a little bit, because we've seen so many different angles from the governance of innovation to managing congestion, to trying to look at new vehicles, to better understanding users and passengers. We've seen a lot. If we can bring in the panelists, I would like you to reflect a little bit on what are the kind of key performance indicators actually that you are working with when you're thinking about innovation in public transport. I mean, what are your aims actually at the end of the day? Because there are so many angles you could take. I mean, there's cost effectiveness, there's social justice. There are many different angles to this. How do you approach the performance and therefore the kind of innovation that you're looking for when it comes to public transport? Joanna.
Hi. So in terms of the way we think about our projects, they are very tied to to two main aspects. Let's say the needs that we feel within the company, so the challenges that we have with the operation. So naturally, all the key performance indicators that all operators deal with, so the service reliability, if there are delays or not, if there are service interruptions or not. So all of these challenges will naturally drive many of our innovations and the search for better methodologies. Of course, we also have the importance of hearing our users to understand their needs and not so their needs and their expectations. So naturally, all the types of indicators dealing with user satisfaction, the complaints they have, drive us to search for solutions that would help us provide a better service to them. So naturally, anything dealing with accessibility also. So not only the geographical accessibility, so where do our services reach if there are certain areas of the city that are not that well served, but also physical accessibility. If people with reduced mobility or with some kind of limitations, if they can use our services comfortably or not. So this deals with all aspects. So the way we provide information to our passengers, also providing accurate and real-time information is a struggle that we are trying. It's not a struggle, but it's something that we want to improve in our services. Provide them accurate information, and yeah, I think mostly what we are doing is right now it's the information and if our service meets the needs that the citizen really reveal to us.
Yeah, improving your operations to meet users' needs. On the other hand, Hannah, there's also this interaction between public transport and mobility in a city, and there are targets on cities. There are political, let's say, decisions that are made to get the city in another place. I mean, how does that also feed into the kind of innovations that you need to think about?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of those KPIs, we're thinking about the same things as Joanna when operating a public transport network. So those operational considerations, that journey time reliability, but the customer experience. But I think ultimately it's got to work for our customers. So are the innovations that we're deploying, how are they helping our customers? So did they help was that journey, did it help them make that journey quicker? Did it help with that seamless transition between modes? Again, did they get the right information? So was the information on disruptions and delay available? And I think that people want information in increasingly digitized ways as well. So how are we getting that information out to our customers? So is it through our apps? Transport for Greater Manchester has its own journey planning app. So, but are people using that app? Are they using other third-party apps? So are we channeling that information in the right way? I think some of those facts and figures that I presented earlier on are kind of key to us. So I think a key performance indicator for us would be that overall, how are we kind of increasing that percentage of journeys made by public transport? So how are our innovations helping us get to those figures that we need to get to?
Okay, so we're hearing that it's very much about this, optimizing the service and understanding the users. Bert, I mean, do you basically agree with that? That's the key KPI. And also a question from the audience in terms of some of the AI systems that you've been developing. Have you been able to document any sort of positive impact precisely then on service delivery or the potentially like lowering costs?
Yeah. As if you have ever seen or been in Belgium, you will have noticed that our policymakers are more in favor of cars than public transport. So we have to focus really on efficiency and cost efficiency. So any innovation we prioritize first on what does it bring in the ways of efficiency. So and so the AI, we have the advantage that you have some PhD students with an AI degree in-house that have been very creative. So they focused in first instance on the passenger time predictions, so we can have the realistic passage times, and that's really cost effective. You base all your services on accurate data. You will have an advantage, and you will have a cost efficiency gain. But besides that, we can't neglect the customer satisfaction, like Joanna told. Personal information, inclusion, and accessibility is also on top of our list to address. What I find myself, which is a bit neglected, is the domain of sustainability. We do a major effort on electrification, but for the rest, not much on sustainability, and it's quite a bit.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Bert and Eric. I mean, do you basically agree with this picture that we're painting, that if public transport has to innovate, it is to be much more efficient and provide the best possible service to users? And this, I guess, would be the best promise to get people to use public transport. I mean, is that how we need to understand the KPIs on public transport innovation?
I think that we have a major compass regarding the key KPI is the overall footprint of mobility and transport on a given area. And this has different levels, such as energy transition, efficiency for the vehicles, modal shift, which is something we consider as an operator. We have a major role to play, because if the experience is better, so theoretically there will be more people in public transport, but also having a mix that is as fluid as this can, with different modes, such as active mobility, which is of course a very light and efficient way for people to move. So this is the first compass is the overall footprint, and it's still a bit the beginning, but this can also be extended to biodiversity, water consumption, things like that. It's not only a question of carbon; it's a question of footprint in general. So that's one of the point. And of course, especially when we are a public transport operator, in certain context, we are very constrained and challenged on our costs, especially in the tender phases. So we have to be as competitive as we can. And of course, if we can find good solutions to save time and to save money, it makes much sense. Another point I would mention, especially regarding the question you had for Bert regarding artificial intelligence, it's also a way to give a better service, to go faster, especially when we are facing disruptions. Because on that case, people in supervision teams usually have to both solve the problem and communicate to the teams. Of course, when it's well organized, it's different persons. But if you can give the information and propose alternative solutions in minutes or seconds, it's much better than in tens of minutes and so on. This is something we have experienced in big underground contracts, such as Lyon historically, or Rennes, and so on.
So we see multiple touch points for innovation. Bert, I mean, you talked about electrification, and you were saying maybe we're overall not doing enough on sustainability. It's a lot around electrification. On the other hand, that does represent a big change. I have here a comment also in the audience that 13% of all buses in Norway are now electric since the 1st of June. So we see that there's a big change in that. So this kind of change in infrastructure, how much does that then bring in terms of innovation challenges? Do you need to kind of rethink things as you are electrifying your fleet? Can you maybe comment a little bit on that?
Oh, it's all about innovation, electrification. It's just, first point is the shift in operational processes. From fuel management to charging management is quite a big gap to close. It requires quite a new mindset and skill set also among staff to adapt to electrification, but also some potential innovation needs when you talk about innovation. And then I think about vehicle capacity planning. We need tools to forecast and allocate vehicle capacity efficiently, ensuring the alignment with operational demand and energy constraints. We have to optimize depot and daily planning in an intelligent way. We need some tools or softwares to have some battery-aware deployment of optimization. We have to be able to predict energy and charging, have the forecasting, and there are some barriers in the way that constructors at the moment are reluctant to open their data sources, their sensor data, and we also are seeing insufficient ICT competencies also by the constructors, also from the vehicles as well as from charging infrastructure. So they miss some kind of. They are not ICT experts. They are manufacturers, and they are good in installation and in placing installations, but not in providing adequate IT solutions. And then all the environmental problems like permits, insurance problems, and those kinds of things. But that's nothing. They have to do. They have to innovate also. So to cope with these kind of problems.
In addition to the whole infrastructure, maybe Eric also a quick comment, and then I'll also go to Joanna. Do you think it's more of a kind of general R&D issue, or are there actually also issues in terms of how public authorities are tendering and using public procurement to push innovation, especially in this case around electrification, for instance? Eric.
I think PTAs are very good because they are our customers. But I think for all of the profession, it's some sort of a paradigm change because it's a fully new world for us. Though it started a few years now. When you have a diesel bus, when there is no more gas, you just put gas and go. If you have a bus, an electric bus, you have to think overall the vehicles, the battery types, the charging mode at the depot, at the arrival, the capacity, and you have to redesign all of the network to be sure that everything will be consistent. And especially it's currently it's 33 degrees outside here in Paris. The question of air conditioning and things like that is changing all the parameters in many cases. So it's really a change of culture, a change of skills, because being a mechanic in a diesel bus is very different from getting into a battery or electric equipment. And the way you organize a depot is not only a question of parking organized on an organized way the different buses. It's also a combination. There is a huge space for ICT at every function: charging, vehicles, data analysis, network designing, and so on. So it's still having the buses and the chargers is just the beginning, I think.
And maybe also a comment from Joanna to give a bit also the perspective on procurement potentially as well.
Actually, I agree with everything that was said by both Bert and Eric. These are some of the issues that we found. So all the operation has to change. The way you operate with an electric bus is completely different from the vehicle from the diesel one. It's subject to so many variables. Eric mentioned the temperature, but even the landscape will have an impact. The weight that is transport will have an impact. So from one day to the other, even if all else changes, if you have a lot of demand, the consumption will change. And we at CARRIS, we are now in the scaling up process of our electric fleet. So we initially had 15 buses, and now we scaled up to 60. And an issue we found was the real-time monitoring of the state of charge of the vehicles that are in operation. So not only the planning, but during the day when we start mixing different fleets. So in this case, we have the standard fleet. We have two groups. They are the same model, but they are from different years. So all from the onset, the range of the battery is completely it's different. So the newer vehicles, of course, have a higher range, a higher autonomy, and the way the schedule for services will change necessarily. So one issue that we found that we actually had a project called Impulse from EIT that dealt with this. So having a real-time monitoring of the state of charge and predicting if the charge would be enough to finish the scheduled service. Another issue that I believe Bert was the one who mentioned it is when we start procuring from different providers. One issue that we found was that the way they provide the real data information from the cars, it's not a standardized format. So each supplier has a different platform, a different access mode, and when you're operating with mixed fleets of different providers, this is a challenge for us. So we really need this some sort of agnostic platform, so we can manage all of all of our fleet simultaneously, because this is the goal, to make it as easier a task as we can to our operatives.
So we see that electrification is a major transformation, very horizontal and cross-cutting. I'd like to come back also to the more sort of, let's say, traffic management style innovation that you also presented, especially Joana and Hannah. Hannah, when you're developing these tools, and obviously you're trying to deal with a city that still uses a lot of private vehicles, are you also able then to integrate variables like things, like big events happening or unforeseen events? And how much do you think these kinds of tools with data and more accurate data can also help you think about bringing public transport into a more demand responsive type of service? Do you think that that's also one of the goals that you can get to?
Yeah, definitely, and I think it is all about that data and having that data capability to integrate data, so we're getting a full situational awareness, so we can see what's going on across the tram network, what's going on the bus network, what's happening on the highway network. We work quite closely with National Highways, who manage the motorways which surround Greater Manchester as well. So for big events, there could be major influxes in traffic coming from the strategic road network as well as the local network. So it is really a balance of all those different modes and how we visualize that. So how we have an operational control center, and they're monitoring day by day, minute by minute, what is going on across the whole transport network. So it's really about those seamless journeys, and I think that even counts like cross-boundary as well. So we can't just work within Greater Manchester, because people don't just travel within the boundaries of Greater Manchester. So how are we gathering information about those kind of modal interactions? And I think that will become even more apparent when we start integrating rail. But yeah, it's all about how we can make those data-driven interventions with our traffic management tools. So kind of decision support tools for our operators, and automating processes as well. It was quite interesting, Bert's presentation about that kind of sensing on the bus and tram network, but that really comes into play when you're thinking about whether you're implementing bus priority, and kind of, would you be implementing bus priority for an empty bus, for example? So if you can really understand how many passengers are on a bus and how that interacts across different modes, and then thinking about balancing that load across modes becomes really important when you're kind of managing incidents or kind of big events. So yeah, I think it is that integration piece is key.
Yeah, and so you're already talking about those data points, and behind that there's obviously the bigger notion of digitalization in general. And we have electrification on the one hand, digitalization on the other. And I'd like you also maybe to reflect on what you see as being the next big thing in terms of digitalization on public transport. Maybe we could just show the results of a poll that EIT Urban Mobility launched on its LinkedIn. Which innovation will have the greatest impact on public transport in the coming years? And the number one that came out was real-time data integration. So that sounds a bit like what you were talking about, Hannah. But we also see here AI-powered demand forecasting and autonomous fleets. Oddly enough, mass platforms come last in this series of 4. And mobility as a service, actually, this was like a big thing. And I wonder, is it still a thing? But maybe just, Bert, could you have a quick reaction to that in terms of digitalization and maybe also autonomous fleets, because there's actually a question for you on that, whether or not you have some experience with that.
It's an interesting poll. I think real-time data integration, we are in the middle of that, and a lot of things moving around that, as you heard with the colleagues in the presentations. For me, Mars was a hype, was a first shot into the digital world of public transport or transport in general. But it's for me it's over, and we will see some new kind of format of form, and I think we won't use the term Mars anymore. But the biggest new challenge is after electrification will be autonomous. It's gonna change the whole landscape and the way we use mobility or consume mobility in general. So it's the next big thing, and I think it's not that far away if you're looking at China and America at the moment.
So do you have any experience with autonomous fleets at the land?
We have some pilot concepts. This summer we're starting with some shuttles in one city, and we have a bigger project to actually exploit a whole bus line to replace it by autonomous shuttles. It's in Leuven. It's at university city, and when we over there we'll put these autonomous shuttles in service in a conventional line, but at night we will cover the whole mobility services of the whole city with this capacity of autonomous buses. It's a smaller city with 50,000 inhabitants, but it will be within 2 years that we can start the project.
Okay, so for you, the next big thing is really autonomous fleets.
Autonomous.
Joanna, what would be the next big thing for you in terms of digitalization and also a reaction to the poll?
Well, actually, I agree with the poll. So I think real-time integration now is right now it's in the short term. I think it's a more important one because it is the backbone of every other type of innovation that was discussed in the poll. So without real-time information, you cannot have full-fledged mass applications that give you real-time information and updated information and alerts on any issue happening in the city. And also AI-powered demand forecasting. Also, its added value is when you feed it with real-time data, and it can assess the trends, not only historical, but it can adapt to the trends that we are observing in the short term. So yes, I agree with this. Touching on what Bert said about Mars being it was a hype. I agree that there is a need for mass applications, so to give informations to the people. But I think the demand for the market flooded with differentiations that are basically doing the same thing. So I think there is a bit of a flooding of the market of different apps that do similar things, and I think people want one single app that gives them all the information they need about public transport. And I think this is a challenge right now. It's to find the sweet spot to provide all the information that different citizens have, the needs that they have in terms of information to reach everyone. And yes, autonomous fleets. In the short term, well, we have some issues. I think it will be the future. Sooner or later, we will have to include some type of automation in the fleets. As of now, we have some issues with the public acceptance of using these types of fleets in the city, and also road safety. How will drivers react to autonomous buses, and also the security within the bus? So do we have a driver or something present for that the users, the passengers, will feel safe driving that bus with unknown people? No? Because it's an issue. Like you want to feel safe in the vehicle that is transporting you. And also we have some vandalism concerns. So if no one's there to monitor, so how will people treat the vehicles? But yeah, I think it's for the short term, I think yes, real-time data integration is key to make everything else work.
Okay, brilliant. And I'd love a reaction also from Eric on this notion of autonomous fleets and a reaction to also, what you see as being the next big thing in terms of digitalization. And then I also have a very short follow-up question for you, Eric. So go for it.
Okay, I'll try to make it short. First, I absolutely agree with real-time information is absolutely key. especially if we want people to make the good choice about the way they move. If they know what will happen and what is the risk and so on, they will be able to change the most efficient way of transportation, which is usually not the car, to my eyes at least. And mass is getting more and more local, and this is how it makes sense to have a local tool that is really a tool in the hands of the public transport authority to not only give a better service to passengers, but also try to have an impact on their behavior. And attract them in the to say in the good direction, which could be an electric bike, because I think it's a small revolution in our cities. Once that is said, I think autonomous vehicles have been the future for a long time now. We started the first experiments back in 2016 in Lyon. So it's been a long story. The point is that the vehicle that I think will soon circulate in Leuven, that were in Paris a few weeks ago from WeRide, they are absolutely impressive in the way they behave on the traffic, in the way they work, in the comfort. And I did not experiment that personally, but all my colleagues that were using the Waymo services in the US or WeRide or Pony in China say that the service is huge and very impressive. Once that is said, there is a European way to consider mobility, and consider that everyone will be moving alone in a robot taxi is probably not the good solution, especially because our cities are not compatible with a certain number of cars, whatever they want. Do they have drivers or not? So I think this is definitively an important topic, and we are working with my team on that. And the experience of automated metro is interesting in that case, because when you have something that is fully automated, it's, let us say, rather easy to add a vehicle because you have a demand, and especially if you can forecast that in 2 hours the concert of Oasis in Manchester will be stopping, will be getting to its end. You can integrate the vehicles once everything is starting. So this is clearly a very interesting target, but we have to keep in mind that the key topic is to have people move together in a let us say a smart or frugal footprint mode.
Okay, I did have a follow-up.
It was a very clear answer, but
from no, you did. It was really specific to urban loop and whether it's economically viable, right? Because obviously it's only for up to 2 passengers. So maybe if you can do that in 30 seconds.
Urban loop is a way to address certain kinds of mobility when you can dedicate a space and you have a certain level of demand that is not too high, but it can be rather high anyway. So it's a very nice and efficient way to solve certain cases, but it's not all the cases. It's a nice product, and I loved it. But it's a niche, but I think they can be reached within the niche aspect.
Okay, brilliant. I'd like you also, as a kind of final question, and maybe I can go to you, Hannah, first, because we've seen all the different pressures on public transport to change, and transformations are happening. On the other hand, the governance of all of that is not always easy, because there's typically a mix, usually between public and private operators offering different things within the space of public transport. Who do you see as being, let's say, the most responsible organization to set the direction of travel, no pun intended, for public transport innovation? Who should be calling the shots to lead the way?
I think from a Transport for Greater Manchester perspective, we're quite lucky in our kind of the way we're set up. So we're the Transport Authority for Greater Manchester. So we have that overall responsibility for any transport related activity for the 10 local authorities. So that gives us that kind of responsibility for planning investment, for operational management and planning, and even more so we've owned and operated with the help of CARRIS the Metrolink system for a number of years, but now we brought buses back under local control as well. So we've got that overarching kind of responsibility for all transport modes. Lots of local authorities in the UK, and I'm guessing across Europe, aren't organised in that way. I think we saw that as Joanna and I were both part of a project called Tangent, where we worked with partner cities, so exploring how they operated their transport network, what data they had, what traffic management systems they had, and it's done very differently in different areas. So yeah, I guess for us it's an easy one because we've got that overall responsibility, but I guess when you've got those number of different operators and stakeholders, it makes that kind of seamless integration and that multimodality quite difficult.
Yeah, and Bert as well, maybe a comment on that, because we saw the collaboration part at the beginning as a key element for innovation, but then you were saying no, but it's also about regulation and funding.
Yeah.
So who do you see being most responsible?
It's easy if you have all key elements in your hand, like the City of Manchester, the total control as authority. We are servicing different cities, some major cities, and they all want to take control. So we have to go a step higher and go to the regional level, and we're also looking at European level. You have different kind of levels you have to take into account. And to Europe, I look for getting in place the standards, getting the higher regulations, especially around automotive. I think it has to come from Europe and not from local authorities, and foresee the frameworks that are needed. So it depends on your local situation, which kind of regulation and at what level you really need it. But we are looking mostly up to Europe.
Okay, yeah, thanks for that. The different layers, that's a good one also to reflect on. Maybe Eric?
Oh, I have to make a commercial answer. Mayors and local authorities are absolutely key. And especially, I think they are absolutely key because they cannot really lie. They are practically in front of people that elect them, so they have to have the real language in certain area. And the question of how people move, traffic congestion, and things like that, you cannot lie very much about that. You can try to, but it's very difficult. I think if you consider a national level, it's a bit easier, unfortunately, especially.
Okay, so it's the political will on local level that needs to set the direction of travel. Joanna, the final word is to you. You were talking about collaboration, I think, at the beginning.
Yeah, and for us as an operator, we are city-owned operator. So we operate outside the. So in Lisbon we have a curious case. No, it's an interesting case, which is, since we are owned by the city of Lisbon, the municipality, we have exclusive surface road transport rights. Let's say so. It's a concession, but outside in the metropolitan area, TML, which is the authority, they created a unified service around the city of Lisbon. So here we can see the part of, on the one hand, the municipalities really need to answer the needs and expectations of their citizens, but of course we also need an authority, so like TML, and I think I froze. I know. Okay. I thought I was frozen. Sorry. We also see the value of having let's say a high level authority that has the full vision of what is happening in it, not only municipality by municipality, but to have the overall view and to try to coordinate the best way to make these all these different modes interact with each other and be and provide a seamless travel for all users in the metropolitan region, because the truth is people don't live and work always in the same municipality. They need to travel around. So I think there is a need for this type of authority, this type of coordinator, to improve the accessibility for all regions. So basically, it's a mix.
Mix. Thank you so much, Joanna, Bert, Eric, Hannah. Thank you so much for having shared your insights, the time put into the preparation for the case studies. Thank you so much.
Many thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So that was Public Transport Innovations, our 30th episode of the Mobility Talks. I hope you enjoyed that. We heard of the transformation potential of electrification, digitalization, autonomous fleets becoming potentially the next big new thing. And we also touched upon some of the governance aspects that can help make innovation work on the local level. As usual, we will be coming back with a couple more episodes after the summer. So, follow this space. Thanks a lot for your time and joining today, and have a great summer. See you next time. Bye-bye.